So in this final week, it's probably been, a long hike throughout the semester, and probably, it's a situation where, you cannot stand to hear my voice anymore, and I totally understand that. And so, this lecture largely will be good news, because it will be fairly brief. So the following week, I'm calling it a reflection week. Now, as you all know, right from the beginning, when we started this lecture, I talked about what my teaching philosophy is. And I strongly believe this, that my focus is bringing the theory to practice, to help students develop the competencies or what I call skills, that they need for work. And in my view, that is the whole goal of learning. And particularly, in analytical chemistry, I find it particularly important to connect the theory that you learn in the academic world and connect it to the industry. And that nexus is what I'm calling skilling. Now, it's been determined, by a couple of researchers, particularly in the Journal of Chemical Education lately, that often students are not able to extract, the skills that they learned, within the course, unless they are prompted, by an instructor. And that's the whole goal, for, this reflection week, next week, where I like you guys, to think through, about the many activities, that we did throughout the semester and extract, the skills, that we learned that can translate, into the industry. And of course, that makes you proficient, to be effective in the industry, where hopefully, that is where you are headed. And indeed, that is the whole goal, of learning. I strongly believe, learning must have a socio-economic benefit. Meaning, you have to learn, with a goal in mind so that you can develop the skill sets, that you need so that you can contribute, socially, to our communities. And hopefully through that contribution also, there is an economic benefit, to yourself, as well as, to the community, that you are serving. And community and industry sort of, they intersect. And by doing this, hopefully, we help our students, to transition from not just knowing, which we do a lot, in the academic world, to doing. And of course, in chemistry 311, we've done a lot of doing. You guys have done a lot of experiments in the lab, and most importantly, you've done a research project with the whole focus, on training you how to do. And out there, actually, industry often care less so much how much you know, but how much of what you know do you translate, into doing, into applying, so that you can essentially be whatever path that you want to take as far as the career is concerned. And so hopefully, Chem 311, helped you in that transition. We did a lot of knowing, a lot of theoretical aspects and so on. And hopefully, you acquire the competencies, to do. And hopefully that's going to help you to be, whatever you choose to be, especially, towards your careers. And that may help you, not to be in this category of what you're calling, the jobless generation, where people acquire their degrees, they do a lot of courses, but without the ability to translate, those courses into skills, then lots of students face the challenge of determining, what to do with their degrees. And I believe, in Chem 311, the structure of it, is largely to help students be, through the skilling. All right, so in this reflection week, think about the many things that we did. We did a lot of lectures, and the theoretical working basis of different components within analytical instruments. Maybe you can list those instruments that you are exposed to. We talked a lot about the figures of merit, how to compare those different types of instruments. Now we did up to 6, regular labs, the dry lab, with lots of data analytics integrated in each of those labs. And of course, you are exposed to lots of different types of instrumentations that you can list. You now understand things like standard operating procedures, which largely means, being able to follow the guidelines that are stipulated for you, within, the lab manuals and so on. Now, I really, talked a lot about you guys following what you call the good laboratory practices in terms of documentation of your research and your data, labs data, in the lab notebooks. Of course, lab safety is something that you've been exposed to. And of course, you guys were being fairly collaborative, within the lab, particularly, for example, for the polyphenol lab, when you had to share data and so on. Now, in Chem 311, another puzzle, was a research project, which hopefully, despite the density of it in terms of reading academic papers, which you've been exposed to, critically synthesizing scientific literature, a lot of data that you generated, most often for most of you using electrochemical platforms, data reporting, it's something that you've been introduced to. You've already done a series of scientific presentations, and you still have, I think, one more to go. You've done writing. You've been exposed, to all these things. And remember, the focus for the research project, was to solve a societal problem, using the skill sets in analytical chemistry that you've learned. So all this really, are not skills, but they're just simply activities, that you did. However, embedded in these activities, are critical skills, that you should have developed. And the goal for this reflection week, is to think through, among all these activities that you guys did, what are the critical skills that did I develop, that make me competent and proficient, to be used out there in the industry. And so the whole of next week, I won't give any lecture. I like you guys, to simply, sit down and reflect, about what you have done. And, think about, of course, the technical elements of what you've done, the cognitive skills, that certainly, have been developed, through the activities, of these courses. Maybe even the behavioral, skill sets that you've developed. Well, you've been under a lot of pressure as well, and I believe, through those data analytics, sometimes you didn't know how to do it, and you had to learn through the process. Of course, there was an element of stress involved in it, and I think there was growth, through that stress, as somewhat, constructive stress, I should say. So reflect, about all those experiences, because by doing that, that is the only way you can extract, the skills and the proficiencies, that you've actually acquired. Now, maybe the bad news, or the good news actually, is that I've got an assignment for you. So for the whole of next week, when you're doing those reflections, I'd like you guys to simply document in a paragraph statement, listing up to 5 skill sets, that you've acquired, through the lab activities, the research projects, the lectures that we've covered, and sort of I've already listed, most of them here. So you just need really to phrase them into statement and sentences. For example, one of the statement can look like, I've developed, demonstrable proficiency in excellent analytical skills through accurate, gravimetric analysis and extensive experience in data analytics using different calibration methods, and statistical data handling. So maybe that one can be one of, the skill sets, statements, that you can generate out of all those experiences that you've had. So please write down up to five, skill sets, and proficiencies, that you have developed, and include them in the last page of your research paper just after the references. And I'm not forcing you guys, of course, to do this. This one is an activity that I think is very beneficial to you. And if you do that, you're going to be awarded a 1% bonus mark, just by writing down at least those five proficiencies that you can actually extract, from all those activities, that you've learned. I think it's very good for you. Of course, I'm not forcing you to do it, but I'm leading you, into doing it because it's going to be very, very beneficial for you. And for those of you who do that, 1%, bonus mark is going to be awarded to you. And of course, the whole goal is that these statements is what you can actually integrate into your resumes, and they're gonna really help you, towards that path of translating knowledge into doing, into what you're gonna become, in your different careers. And most of you, I think, are looking for jobs, and I think that's gonna be very, very helpful for you. So again, next week, it's a happy ending indeed. I will not post any more content next week. You just need, essentially, for the two lab, not lab, but the two lecture sessions next week, you just need really to focus, on reflecting and developing and writing down, those five paragraph statements, short sentences, really, on skill sets and proficiencies, that you have learned throughout this course. And of course, integrate them into your research paper, just after the references. And, I believe, that is, that is a happy ending, considering all what we've actually covered. So I'll let you be. Again, I'll be available Tuesdays and Thursdays, during the regular lecture hours, for any consultations. And I've also posted, for you the problem set online for you to take a look at, which is going to help you, revise, for your final exam, which is going to be a take-home exam. Again, well done, everyone, and have a happy reflection week, pensive week, to think through about what we've covered until now.